guest is John Guandolo. I want to get right back to him because we need to let him go here in just a couple minutes. But, John, you were talking about what was going on in the little town of Buena Vista. We called it Buena Vista. If you're a native, it's Buena Vista. That's how we identified the outsiders. They called it Buena Vista. But in little Buena Vista, there's a jihadist training camp going on there. A task force pulled together of law enforcement. Tell us how the rest of the story played out.
Well, so you have literally dozens of law enforcement entities from across Colorado because the FBI refused to do anything. They raid the compound. I believe the year was 1987. And lo and behold, what did they find? Weapons, explosives, ammunition, lists of people for assassinations, targets, evidence that the National Guard base not far from there was the target of surveillance for an attack. And, of course, they made arrests. And so the fact that the government's not doing anything now isn't new. This has been the case before.
Now, is that...
And obviously the cost could be deadly if we don't act.
Is that camp in Buena Vista, is it still operational?
It's apparently, according to sources in the last 14 months, yes, it's looking like there's activity again.
Well, I read a story just a couple of weeks ago, John, about a librarian parked her truck out in front of the library, goes into the library, comes back out, and finds what looks like an IED in the back of her truck. This is in Buena Vista. And authorities immediately said, look, we don't suspect any connection with terrorism. And I thought, well, of course not. This is Buena Vista. It's in the middle of nowhere. But now that you say there was and maybe is a training camp there, that would start to make some sense.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, John, before I let you go. What do you think about, do you think we ought to do anything with regard to Muslim immigration? If so, what? Do you think we should do anything to slow the building of mosques? If so, what?
Well, I think the questions you're asking are, from where I stand, are treating the symptom instead of treating the sickness. And the sickness is the very people, the people that work immigration and customs, local, state, federal law enforcement. When I train them, and I've gone all over the country, they don't know this. And so, and the question I pose to police chiefs, to FBI leadership, and have for years is, if you don't know this, how do you hire Muslims and vet Muslims, really, for your organization? And the answer that they always give me is, we can't. And so, to your point, I think that what we need to do is, this has to be a part, as police officers said in my recent training program, this has to be a part of our basic training for law enforcement and military. And then we wouldn't be asking. I think until we get a handle of all of these threats, I would say all immigration, not just from all immigration, needs to be frozen. Up until the 60s, we did not have an open door. We had periods of time where we would allow immigration in. And I think we need to go back to that based on needs of the country.
Our guest has been John Guandolo, counterterrorism expert. He actually created and implemented the first FBI counterterrorism training and education program, former FBI agent who was assigned to the Counterterrorism Division in Washington, D.C., and author of the newly released book, Raising a Jihadi Generation. John, really appreciate you taking time to be with us. We'll let you go, and Godspeed to you. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and God bless you, too.
God bless you, John. John Guandolo, and John Guandolo saying, look, I'm saying we ought to suspend Islamic immigration, and John Guandolo saying we ought to suspend all immigration until we get a handle on jihad and until we get to the point where we are training law enforcement to recognize the enemy, to know what the enemy is about, and to deal with the enemy. Now, we didn't have time to talk about the mosque issue, and I would have been curious as to his reaction to that. But my argument on mosques, Frank Gaffney, Center for Security Policy, their organization, did a survey of all of the mosques, and this is going to be your Fisher factoid of the day. The first Fisher factoid of the day, actually the Guandolo factoid, more than 24, did you get that? More than 24 terrorist training camps, Islamic, Muslim terrorist training camps are being operated right now inside the United States of America. 24 of them in places like Hagerstown, Maryland, Falls Church, Virginia, York, South Carolina, Buena Vista, Colorado, my hometown. I still can't get over that. Talahena, Oklahoma, Tulare County, Squaw Valley in California, large complexes in Red House, Virginia, Commerce, Georgia, near Macon, training camps across the border in Metro Toronto and Ontario, Canada. So 24 of these terror cells that are operating right now in the United States, and local law enforcement and the FBI turning a blind eye to this. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to touch them. Too politically correct to tamper with them because they are Muslim. But anyway, back to the mosque. We'll take phone calls, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. I'll finish my remarks here, and then we'll take phone calls to round out the hour, 888-589-8840. Is Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney, they did research into all the mosques, well, not all the mosques, but did a representative sample to get an idea of what mosques are doing. And they came to the conclusion that 81% of all of the mosques in America either distribute literature or host speakers who advocate violence against the United States in the name of Islam, or advocate violence in the name of Islam. 81% of all the mosques in the United States support, either through literature or guest speakers, violence in the name of Allah. And because these mosques, the ones that distribute this kind of literature and host these kind of speakers, because they tend to be the more popular mosques, 95%, listen to this, this is your Fisher factoid of the day, 95% of all of the Muslims who attend mosque in the United States on a weekly basis, 95% of them they attend a mosque that advocates violence in the name of Allah, either through literature or through guest speakers, 95%. So these mosques are nothing more than little terror training and recruiting cells and indoctrination centers all on their own, advocating violence against the United States. So that, I think, is got to be dealt with. That is a serious factor. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Don in Flora, Illinois. Don, welcome to Focal Point. Let's see. Can we grab Don from Flora, Illinois? There, Don, Flora, Illinois. Thanks for calling. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Well, for one thing, I want to tell you how I appreciate your show, and it gives us a free, something to say as citizens.
Thank you.
They already hit my topic about serving people with the signs and shirts and shoes, but I've got a statement I just wanted to make about, I think that any Christian, I'm including Barack Obama or whoever they are, that believes in same-sex marriage or abortion or apostates, and they're turning the truth into a lie. And I made a statement to the guy I talked to. I said that I'm changing the United States name to the Union of Soviet Republic of United States. So,
yeah, it's kind of looking more like the USSA, reminiscent of the old USSR. Yeah. All right, listen, I appreciate that. And we're looking at what's going on over in Ukraine. And again, the reason I don't do a lot about what's going on in Ukraine is that's not our fight, and I do not think we ought to go in there. This is kind of what separates me out from the neoconservatives, because neoconservatives, like a John McCain, they want to use American military might all over the globe. And I say no. This is Ukraine. This is their sovereign territory. We don't have any right to trespass into their territory and resolve this issue for them. Now, if you have a sitting government that requests our help, then maybe you take a look at that. But this is just not our fight. And every time we have tried to intervene in some foreign setting and use our military might to try to bring liberty or whatever, it's just been a complete disaster. When we go in there to defend our national security and our national interest, we succeed. We went into Afghanistan. We took out the Taliban. Why? Because they were responsible for 9/11. We had every right to go in there. We did it. We got the job done. The Taliban was deposed in a matter of months. We should have left. Mission accomplished. You can't rebuild. You can't build a nation in an Islamic country. Did the same thing in Iraq. The world's best intelligence communities, all of them, said, look, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. They need to be neutralized. It represents a real threat to the United States. We went in there. We deposed Saddam. So when we go in and use our military to defend our own security and our own national interest, we succeed. If we start meddling in other people's internal affairs, it's a recipe for disaster. I think we ought to stay out of the Ukraine. But you clearly see that Putin now, I believe he's going to invade Ukraine. He's not going to let him get away. He's going to invade it and take it back and bring it in and maybe start re-expanding the old Soviet empire. All right, 888-589-8840. Looks like we are just about out of time. And let's grab Rob or Jeff, if we can, soundbite A8, Don Lemon. This goes back, Don Lemon is with CNN. This goes back to the issue of blacks growing increasingly disaffected with Obama. Don Lemon admitting that if you're a journalist, it was hard for you to do a piece that criticized Barack Obama because of his race. This is sort of a remarkable admission. Let's listen.
He is the African-American president. I mean, he's an African-American president. He's a president of all people. But again, he has a responsibility as president to help everyone. But he is a black man. And as I said, he understands the issues that we as African-Americans face more than any other president that we have had. You know, they used to call Bill Clinton the first black president. But I mean, in reality, we know that, that was just sort of fun. But yes, I think he has more of a freedom now. In his first term, he really didn't do much about, gay rights, about same-sex marriage or whatever, and it started happening in the second term. I had said in the beginning that issue would be a second-term issue. He had to prove himself in the beginning. He had probably more criticism than most presidents because when you are the first of anything, there is a bigger responsibility put on you. He's a spectacle in a way. Everyone is looking to hit him and everyone is looking to punch him, and I understand that. And as journalists, you weigh how much you should criticize the president because he's black, what have you, but then you have to do it because...
So Don Lemon admitting, look, it was tough to do a critical story on Obama because of his race, admitting that prejudice colored their coverage of the president. Well, that's it for this week. Bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap. Never forget, we are fighting a winnable war. See you Monday.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
American